Like I'm
How are you
sure
guys doing?
it's
Good? Everyone had a good Thanksgiving break? You feel relaxed and fresh? It feels like a long time since we saw each other last time. So we only have 2 lectures, if I'm not mistaken, today and on Thursday. So this semester is rapidly coming to a close. So what we'll do in today's lecture is we will finish up the section on school finance, and then we're going to start talking a bit about school choice. And then in the lecture on Thursday, what we'll do is we'll finish up our section on school choice and school competition, and then I'll also give you some like a heads up about what will be on the final, what the basic format will be. The format will be very similar to the format for the midterm in terms of like the actual content that will be tested, and I'll talk a bit more about this on Friday. It will be cumulative in the sense that some of the things from the first section, of course, will be very new, but the emphasis will certainly be more on the second part on the second part of the course. But I'll give a question.
Do you think our project will be graded like before exam?
That's a good question. The exam is on Wednesday, right? Yeah. I think it should be good. What time? The exam is online.
It's 3:30 to, it's 3 to 5:30.
Yeah. So if you look online at the registrar's office, essentially, or just look for the corresponding exam block for a time block. So, other questions before we get started? Okay, good. So, just to recap from last class, you can tell me what TP sorting is. What's the big idea behind TP sorting? So this is something that could be on the exam. Because a lot of what we've done in the second half of this course has been like a lot more conceptual, so we're reading articles that talk about different approaches to trying to understand education economics or competition within schools. And it's really like, what's the economics behind some of these ideas and why might they work, and also what these motivations come.
If people sort into towns based on education or quality and property taxes.
Right, and so we have people sorting into towns, so there's just element of choice based on the quality of the education that's provided and the property taxes. And what's the link between the quality of education that's provided and the property taxes? Right, so the higher the taxes, the higher the local property taxes, the more the school is spending on the quality of education, right? And so, in a sense, what's kind of like the key takeaway from this idea of people sorting into these places? What's kind of like the key takeaway from this?
They value better education, they'll live in a place that offers it for the month of taxes.
Exactly, and so the whole idea is that there could be heterogeneity or differences in how much people value education, how much they're willing to pay for an education, right? And one way to figure out how to distribute resources is just to allow people to quote unquote vote with their feet. And what are some of the requirements for this to be efficient? Some of the assumptions that we had to make in order for the TP hypothesis to hold.
Many towns, many people.
So many towns, many people. And why do we need many towns?
So there's no place to sort to from all towns.
That's right. That's right, because if people have a lot of different preferences, then you need sufficient amounts of towns in order to capture the differences in those preferences. What were some of the other assumptions that we made? Perfect mobility. And what does that mean? That's right. It's easy. In fact, it's costless. And what was the assumption that was made on taxes? How are the taxes raised?
Uniform lump sum.
Lump sum. And why was that?
This is like a sunk cost.
Right. And so there, you don't get any distortions with the lump sum taxes, whereas if you have like a tax that depends on the actual income situation where they're going to be both price and quantity distortions. So what were some of the problems with this TQ hypothesis? So like the whole idea is that, look, if we just had more competition, more local competition in particular, we could have a very efficient allocation of local public goods. If the public goods are beneficial for folks, then they should be willing to pay for them, right? And to the extent that you're willing to pay for it, that's the extent to which you should have that good provided. And so it mitigates against which problem? Starts with an F. The free rider problem, right? Where if you have a public good that everybody's contributing to, well, everybody is going to be expecting that somebody else is going to be contributing, and so they're going to under-contribute. And so the whole idea is that you reduce the free rider problem, and there's also this allocated efficiency gain that you get by allowing the market to cause people to sort into the places where they're going to receive the level of local public goods that they want, and they're also going to pay for them. What were some of the problems with the TIBU hypothesis in terms of like it actually working in practice?
3 of the 5 assumptions don't really hold.
Can you say that a bit louder?
3 of the 5 assumptions don't really hold.
Okay, let's say more about that.
There is no perfect mobility, there aren't really lump sum taxes, and people don't have all the available information, or can't centralize all the available information.
Okay, good. So it relies on a very strong set of assumptions. So perfect mobility. And why might we think that perfect mobility doesn't hold? Moving costs a lot, right? And what were the other ones?
No real lump sum taxes.
That's right. And so you're going to, in principle, have these kinds of distortions where if we have a progressive tax regime and where the marginal tax is meaning that above a certain threshold you're going to be getting taxed even more money, that's going to affect people wealthier. And so there are more incentives not to participate in this kind of a scheme, to actually sort to places where they're going to be taxed less. What was the third one?
No perfect information, not available.
Right. And so in order for this actually to work, if you have all of these districts that have a menu of bundles where you have the local public and you have the taxes being available, the whole idea is, look, I'm going to be able to sort into a place that accurately reflects what I value. I have to know about this. And if there is heterogeneity in terms of like how much of my heterogeneity differences, in terms of like how well informed people are about school quality, about the taxes, and so on and so forth, then the ability of the market to play efficiently is going to be impeded. Who in particular might benefit or not benefit from a situation in which, who do we think is going to have better information potentially about the types of schools, the quality of schools, and the taxes, and so on and so forth that's available in various cities?
Those who go to a good school to begin with.
Say that again?
Those who go to a good school to begin with.
Right. So parents who've actually been educated and moved on to good schools. What other subgroups when we think about income? People are wealthier potentially too as well, right? Because they may have more resources either to hire someone to figure out the information for them, or they themselves might need information, which is why they were rich in the first place. So there are huge issues with respect to equity and inequality that can arise from this context. So I walked through that kind of an example because I want you to be able to have this kind of an understanding of some of the concepts that we've discussed in the second half of the course, right? To be able to say, okay, here's a problem. We have a free rider problem where education is a public good. It has to be financed, but there's going to be differences in the extent to which people are going to benefit from it. How do we solve the free rider problem? Oh, through competition. Lots of schools, lots of districts with different taxes that can provide these local public goods. If people know exactly, if they have perfect information, they can sort into the one that has to confidence them. Okay? But then there are all of these assumptions. Where do these assumptions break down? Why do they break down? And then who may be left holding the line, given that these assumptions can break down? Right? So it's a good idea in practice, but then the question is, how do we see it implemented? A good idea in principle, but how do we see it implemented in practice? So this is going to be the kind of like reasoning that I'm going to be expecting you to do in certain parts of the final. So this isn't just going to be regurgitating information. It's going to be able to kind of understand it and process it at a higher level, and then think like an economist or questions that I might ask about that. Okay. So if I remember correctly, we talked about some of the last place where we ended was where we talked about some of the problems with implementing the TIBU process. And did we talk about the administrative costs, like the economies of scale with respect to administrative costs? I think that was the last one, right? Okay. And the basic, what's the basic idea there? like how does the administrative cost of setting up the bureaucracy in a sense kind of push against the two hypotheses of competition being efficient?
Decent way of saying it.
Yeah.
It's saying, why can't succinctly, but basically their economies of scale, centralized bureaucracy does create some efficiencies. Instead of having 10,000 small little bureaucracies, you don't have necessarily high fixed costs. By decentralizing knowledge, you lower the average cost.
That's exactly right. So if you have to raise taxes in all of these districts, and you have N districts, right? Let's say in order to raise taxes, you need to have a computer that's going to input, all of the incomes of everybody. You're going to need to hire a person to send out the emails that's going to say, hey, you owe X. And then you're going to need somebody that says, hey, you didn't pay X, and so we have a collection agency. And so there are all of these fixed costs that's going to be associated with setting up bureaucracy. And these fixed costs are going to scale with the number of jurisdictions that you have, right? So the fixed cost is F, and you have N jurisdictions, it's going to be F times F. And so it could be the case that there's some efficient scale for which you should have maybe a conglomeration of jurisdictions working together to push back against the fixed costs. And so that's the trade-off, right? You get more competition, but you have this higher fixed cost too. That's going to itself then be capitalized into the taxes. Because you don't get a free lunch in terms of just raising taxes for free. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue on with talking about different mechanisms that states use to finance schools. So, and you guys should have, so last class I passed out these three articles, and I think we also sent out an email. So this is the T sorting article by Econ, which is on campus. So if you weren't here, definitely want you to download that and read that. I'll actually just write down the names of these articles so that those of you who are not here can get those and read those. If you have an article, just kind of chill out here. So the first one is table sorting. And please read this. And also check out the lecture if you were not here last week. Table sorting is by Econ. And then school finance. This is by Weiss. Design. And then the third article is school finance. This is by Ramos. And all of these are on campus. So if you missed last week's last class lecture, please pull those articles down and read those. You can also look at the lecture from the videos are online, Richard. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that, Jeff. Okay, cool. All right. So let us talk about how schools are financed. So we're going to look at methods of school events. So the first method is what's called a flat grant. And what this is it's just a grant from the state to a school that's going, or a school district that's going to be equal. across all schools. And it can be equal also on a per, either each school gets X amount of dollars, or it can be each school gets X amount of dollars per pupil. So this flat grant is going to be a grant of equal size. That's awarded to all schools. And it could be per school or on a per pupil basis. Okay. Say that again?
Better state.
So this is going to be state. So this can be at the state level, or this can be at the federal level. And typically, what we're going to be thinking about is going to be school finance at the state level. So we're going to be thinking about this as school districts have the capacity to raise taxes through local property taxes, but then the state is going to be stepping in to either top up the money that schools can raise locally if they're not able to raise enough, or to distribute money from districts that can raise more. Now, what are some of the virtues of this flat tax?
Easy to administer.
It's easy to administer. What else?
Quality issues.
Yeah.
Unless
So
you're a quality issue.
yeah. So from an equity standpoint, it seems pretty fair, right? It's like everybody gets the same thing. But what's one problem with that? Like, what's one problem with giving everybody the same thing? It's equal, but is it equitable? Why might it not be equitable?
Need graders somewhere or one school.
And so the pros here is that it's equal. The con is that it may not be equitable. Right? And to kind of give you a little pictorial about equality versus equity, there's a very famous graph or picture where you have this fence, and there are three different people, right? And equality would be you give everybody the same stoop to stand on. So the tall person can see over, the short person can't. And there's something else that's the size person that barely can do it, right? And so this is equal. In the sense that everybody gets the same leg up, right? Equitable would be to say, okay, this guy is pretty tall. So maybe he gets a really tiny stoop. The other guy is super short. So he gets a taller stoop. And the medium height guy gets a medium sized stoop. Everybody understands this? And so there's always going to be this kind of a trade-off, right? So in a sense, equality is going to be pushing us in one direction, and what's equitable is going to be pushing us in another direction. It's really considerable the people that are going to be potentially affected by this. And the reason why this might not be equitable is because school districts may differ in their ability to raise taxes, right? And so the flat grant may not be equitable. The school districts differ in their ability to raise revenue from local property taxes. So the second type of funding is going to be what's called foundation programs. And so what these are going to do is they're going to set a minimum per pupil spending that's going to guarantee that students can get a minimal quality of education. And also to what the state is going to do is they're going to set a minimum tax rate for the school district, so that the school district is also participating in contributing to this minimum standard of education for the students. And so what it's going to do is it's going to assign like this quality threshold across all school districts. And at the same time, too, it's going to require that states actually going to have a minimum tax rate as well, too. And so this is taking away some of the local controls from states to be able to set their own tax rate. So if we go to a T world, like you can't set the tax rate in this context to 0 for being to college. If nobody wants to go to high school. Okay. So let's look. So we're gonna have foundation programs. And so you're gonna have, so the state sets the minimum equal spending to ensure minimum standard educational inputs. Moreover, the state will set a minimum tax rate you guys can't see below this, right? Tax rate for school districts as a condition for state aid. As a condition for state. Okay. You can see me right on the picture, right, Shannon?
Yeah.
You can say, okay, perfect, thank you very much. Okay, so let me flesh this out by telling you how the state is going to calculate the amount of aid that it's going to provide to a given school district. So the state aid to district D. So this D here is going to be an index for the district. It's going to be equal to the foundation level. So let me say the state aid for district D and state S, and then this S is going to be just the index. And the foundation level is going to be set up, which is the foundation level going to be set at the state level or the district level? Just like that, it should. That's it.
It's state.
Yeah, it's going to be set at the state level, exactly. Because the whole idea is to equalize across all schools. So the foundation level is going to be set at the state level, so the subscript S, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to subtract away local tax revenue of the district, that's the S. And so what happens if the local tax revenue that you're able to raise is lowering the foundation level? You're going to get state aid. Right? And if the local tax revenue that you raise is greater than the foundation level, what's going to happen? It's negative. And so like in some cases, like what would happen is if the tax revenue raised is greater than the foundation level, then you get no state aid. And then there's some other context where there's what's called recapture, which is going to mean that if you're above the foundation level, then the state actually is going to take some of that money and distribute it to other districts that are poorer. Okay. So So this is foundation program. Any questions on this? So for example, if the foundation level is 10K, and the taxes that we raise is $3,000, then the state aid is going to be 7K. It's going to make up the difference. So effectively, like what this foundation program is doing is it's going to be topping up states to, it's going to be topping up school districts to the level of what the state thinks is required. Now, let me ask you a question. Why would it be the case that the state would want to impose a minimum district tax? So one of the conditions of receiving the state aid is that the district must have this minimum tax rate, this minimum tax rate. Why am I thinking that?
There's an incentive not to raise any tax.
Say that again?
There's an incentive not to raise any tax, which could all the funding from the state.
That's exactly right. And so if there was not a minimum tax rate here, what could happen is the district might say, look, we have this foundation level, like we don't want to raise any taxes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be fully funded by the state. And that could make the burden of this type of program very expensive. And so that's one of the problems with this, or at least that's one of the design features of this. So the state tax minimum gives districts an incentive to contribute to their educational expenditure. Yeah. Okay. And then a feature of this is that state aid flows to foreign districts. So the lower your local tax revenue, the more state aid that you're going to get, right? Now, one challenge with this is that it doesn't fully solve this issue, this equity issue, because there are going to be some school districts that are going to be able to raise like a lot more local tax revenue. Those school districts will still be able to outspend school districts that are not able to raise that tax revenue, right? And so the equity issue persists because some school districts will have a larger tax base. Or a richer tax base. Any questions on this before I go to the third?
How many recapture type programs has this been? Because I mean, that was.
So Texas had one, which is called the Robin Hood program. We'll talk a bit about that recapture program. And what's interesting, so recapture programs just mean that if you go above the foundation level, you don't get all of those dollars, right? You may get some fraction of those dollars, or none of those dollars to begin with. And so if, for example, let's go with that. You were above the foundation level. Do you have an incentive to raise taxes? No. Right? And so in a sense, what can happen is that could actually cause a situation where educational quality can stagnate in those places. People are willing to purchase more education and pay for it, but because there's redistribution, the level could actually become low. And if households in those types of environments are sufficiently rich, what might they do? So households want to pay more for public education. They're not allowed to. They're not going to pay more because of this cap issue, because more money that they pay is actually going to go to other school districts. So what might households do in those kinds of neighborhoods? Say it again. Move elsewhere. That's just meaning that move to other districts. What is something else that they could do to them? What's another margin along which they can adjust? And when I say a margin along which they can adjust, it's like, what are the other options or decisions available to them? Remember the intensive margin, the extensive margin? So moving elsewhere would be an example of what? It would be an extensive margin. They just get out of that margin. What's an example of an intensive margin adjustment to a neighborhood being at the foundation level? Taxpayers wanting to pay more money to get better public education, but then not having the incentive to do that because then paying higher taxes is not going to lead to more spending in their district. What can they do on the intensive margin?
Private school.
Bingo, ding ding ding, private school, right? And so like whenever you design these kinds of programs, so you have in the forefront of your mind, okay, there's an equity issue and there's an equality issue that's at play here, right? And we want to design programs at the state or the federal level that's going to address these concerns. But then we always have to think about, okay, when we make these changes, how are households going to adjust their behavior? We can't take their behavior as given because we're changing the policy. And they can adjust on the extensive margin, as Chris pointed out, by exiting that neighborhood. And so this is kind of a Tipu story, right? You have competition. There are some places that just offer, there may be some places that are, there may be some actual states. You might actually move out of the state, right? Because the foundation level is being set at the state level, so you might move to another state where there's better educational outcome. Or you can say, look, I'm going to go to a private school. And then the system could actually become worse, right? Because what could happen is if those people start moving into private schools, and let's say that in that particular locality, public schools just completely disappear. Now all of a sudden, like the state burden was going to be like much higher, potentially, because that was a school that was not contributing. That was a school that could potentially subsidize a lot of the other schools, right? If the cap was moved up a bit more. Okay, that was a good question. Okay, so the third type of arrangement is what's called a guaranteed tax base. A guaranteed tax base. Now let me lay the intuition for this before I write it. So one of the problems with these foundational aid programs is that a district that had a better tax base, meaning like that had richer people living in that district, they could still provide higher levels of education. And so the equity question was addressed, right? Because we set a limit, a minimum limit per pupil. So what these guaranteed tax-based school finance mechanisms do is they allow each school to act as if it had a tax base of a particular size. And so a district that was poor allowed them to act as if they were a richer district, for example. Let me, what I'll do is I'll write this out in words, and then I'll write an equation similar to this equation here, and it'll be more clear from the equation than from the words, potentially. Okay. So the third mechanism is what's called the